He took the pistol and he went to a neighboring RV. It really did make me think about what could have happened. What would you do in that situation? Hi there, I'm Paige, and today's episode is going to be a little different. I want to talk about something unusual that happened a couple of RV parks ago and see what other people would have done in our situation. It was a circumstance that we hadn't run into. So my husband Justin and I, we've been on the road for the past year. We've been living, working, traveling constantly in our RV, and it has been great. For the most part, we've had a couple of iffy neighbors here and there, and I've done some videos in the past on them. And I will say that one of the great things about RV life is if you get neighbors that you don't mix with for whatever reason, that they probably won't be your neighbors for too long unless you're stationary and you're both doing month to month and you're there for a long time, which is not what we've been doing. We've been traveling. So the flip side of that is that you meet all sorts of people, and I think every challenging neighbor situation has been a little different. Today's neighbor story isn't the same as some of the ones in the past. It's not really one of those rude neighbor stories where you're like, oh gosh, how could they? It's kind of an odd situation that I'm glad didn't get as weird as it could have, but at the time I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So without any further ado, let's just talk about what happened. And I will tell you about what happened. I'll tell you sort of my thoughts around it. And I'll tell you about something really scary that happened in the news that made it even more difficult to know what to do in the moment. So let's dive in. So as we've talked about on the channel quite a few times, both Justin and I work full-time as we're traveling from our RV. We are not independently wealthy people. We do not have trust funds. We are not living off some type of inherited or passive income. We are working stiffs. In addition to running not one but two channels here on YouTube, I have my own online business. So I wear a lot of hats and I'm constantly juggling stuff. Justin has a full-time gig for an employer. He's a manager in tech. He remotes into his job. Anyway, I have my headphones on and I am working, and I'm editing a video. So I'm really immersed. And I have my noise canceling kind of up because Justin often will run meetings. So he'll be talking to people and I want to be able to focus on my audio and what I'm doing. So I completely missed this whole thing. I don't know that anything has happened until Justin gets back from opening the door. He talks to somebody and then he comes back. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, there is this little boy outside. Now, neither Justin and I are parents. We don't typically work with children that much. We do have nieces and nephews, but we're not great judges of age. But I'm like, how old was this little boy? And Justin thinks, he says, hard to tell, maybe 10. I'm like, okay, well, what did he want? So this little boy had come by and he was asking if there were any odd jobs we could give him, trying to drum up some business, probably for some pocket change or something. It hadn't happened to us before. This was the first time it had happened to us. On one hand, great, that's enterprising. I can remember when I grew up, my parents always had us working. I remember going to, for example, the strawberry farm that was kind of near our place. They had a U-Pick where you would pick and pay, and we would go in and we would have our allowance money or our money from running yard sales or babysitting or whatever. We would go and we would take our money and we would buy a bunch of strawberries, me and my siblings. I have two older sisters and a younger brother. Anyway, we would go and we would pick all these berries. We would pay for it out of our pocket money that we had saved up. And then we would go and we would sell those berries on the lawn outside of our house and we would make a profit. We'd also run yard sales for my parents. So we would be selling stuff and we would get the money from what we sold and then we would get like a cut of the overall proceeds. So my parents didn't necessarily have to work at the yard sales. We were doing that very young. I think I started working at that sort of thing when I was 8. When I was 11, I sold programs at hockey games at a university. There were lots of unofficial jobs that I did. As a musician, I looked a lot older for my age when I was 11 or 12, and I was gigging in bars and getting paid for that as a working musician pretty early on. I had teachers driving me, older friends. I have been working from a very young age. So on one hand, I get it. I get the hustle. I was making money when I was very young, and I have a lot of respect for that. On the other hand, that was 40 years ago. Culture has changed a lot, and especially in a situation where you're in an RV park and you don't necessarily know all your neighbors, it's a little how you doing? I don't know. So anyway, he came by, he knocked on the door, fine. So we go back to work, we're hard at work, and then maybe half hour, 45 minutes later, I see out of the corner of my eye that Justin has gotten up, he's talking to somebody, he's closing the door, and he's really like gruff and angry now. I'm like, oh boy, because Justin can set some boundaries, but he's a nice dude, he's not like, he's not like that. So I was like, what is going on? Turns out the kid came by again, and he was asking to do odd jobs again. Justin, I think what he said was like, you've already been here, you've already talked to us, and kind of slammed the door. So at this point, I'm like, oh dear, well, what do I do? Justin's in a terrible mood. I'm like, hey, what's up? Do you want me to go like tell the office about it and see if it's okay? Because a lot of RV parks have no soliciting rules where you're not supposed to be going around door to door. On the other hand, we don't know who this kid is. We don't know if he lives in the park or if he's from the neighborhood around or what's going on. And he's not hurting anyone or anything. He's just kind of being annoying. Justin's like, no. If he comes back though, then yeah, maybe we should talk to somebody because this is getting a little ridiculous, and also it's not safe for the kid to be doing this. I hate to say it, but in America these days, we all are packing something. People are armed and they're on hair trigger, especially lately, and you don't know who these people are answering the door, and we're pretty even keel, we're pretty chill, but like that kid could knock on the wrong door 2, 3, 4 times and end up with somebody who is not cool, who could, do something to him. Horrible, right? It's mildly annoying, but I'm not a big Karen, and Justin is getting a little annoyed, but he always would get annoyed when we'd have people knocking on our door when we lived in a house. We had a big no soliciting sign up, so he'd be like pointing at the sign and everything. You know what it is, people just kind of get in your business. It's obnoxious, but whatever. And so thankfully the kid didn't come back again, but I was talking to my friends about it, kind of texting like, oh, this weird thing happened. And I didn't even think to really be scared or anything, because this is just a kid, right? It's just a kid, whatever. But I was talking to one of my friends, and my friend was like, well, that would really freak me out if that happened because of what just happened in the news. I was like, what? What are you talking about? What happened in the news? And they sent me an article, and I'll actually put it on screen for you, but I can talk a little bit about it as well, and I'll link it in the description below. But essentially, back in 2022, a little boy who was 8 years old at the time in Texas. Oh, excuse me, he was 7. This was a little boy who was 7 at the time, and this was in Texas, was at his grandpa's RV park, just visiting his grandpa. And this little 7-year-old boy, he found a pistol in the glove box of his grandpa's truck, and then he took the gun, he took the pistol, and he went to a neighboring RV, just a complete stranger, this 32-year-old guy, a neighbor of his grandpa, and he shot the guy while he was sleeping. 7-year-old boy, just randomly. And in the articles that I read, the investigators say that this child was asked if he was mad at the person he shot, or if this person had ever done anything to him to upset him, and the kid said no. Just a wild thing. So obviously that didn't happen in our case, obviously, and the kid never came back. But it really did make me think about what could have happened, I guess, or if I handled it right. What we decided to do was kind of wait and see if the kid came back, and if the kid came back, go talk to the office. I would probably have tried to grab at least a snapshot of the kid. I know that's a little odd, but something, so we had at least some identification. I don't know, it's a very strange thing just to even track who the kid was or what was going on, because it was just very, very odd. That said, we didn't feel unsafe. Justin felt mildly annoyed. But yeah, what would you do in that situation? Would I have been a Karen to report this kid to the office? And have you run into any weird situations yourself? Very tragic, this thing that happened in the news, and it really does make you think. I haven't run into this before, so I'm genuinely curious on people's thoughts. Anyway, it's been great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.